This is your Sound Off Extra review for NXT Takeover Brooklyn here on the official YouTube channel for the Solomonster Sounds Off podcast, which drops each and every Sunday on the Solomonster.com, Stitcher Radio, TuneIn Radio, Audio Boom, and iTunes. I am the Solomonster. I was in attendance for NXT Takeover Brooklyn at the Barclays Center on Saturday, August the 22nd, and can tell you that it was one of the most fun experiences I've ever had at a wrestling show before. And I've been to a lot of shows, WWE, TNA, Ring of Honor, among some others, indie shows. But this was about as much fun as I've had, I think, at a show. Certainly a big show. And what we're going to do here, before we get into the actual TakeOver review, there was a TV taping for NXT that took place before the show began live on the network. These are spoilers for a show that will air this Wednesday, August the 26th. So if you do not want to know anything that's going to be happening on NXT this week, if you're listening to it before then you might want to skip ahead by a few minutes. Otherwise, we'll get right into it here in just a second. First, let me just say, as far as the crowd, I had a lot of questions about the crowd. How was the crowd there live? Was it as packed as it looked on TV? It was every bit as packed as it looked on TV, if not more so. Unless you've been in the Barclays Center before, and I've been there a few times for wrestling shows. I've been there for a Nets, basketball game. And for a Nets game, I've been up in the cheap seats, up in the 200 section, way up top in the arena. And you're way up there. I mean, it was to the point where, the players on the court look like ants. So this is one of those buildings where if you're in the upper deck, then you're very far away. And you had people in the very upper deck, right on down to ringside. There were scattered empty seats here and there, mostly behind where or maybe in that section, I should say, where the hard camera was situated. And whenever they would show somebody on camera, like Ric Flair, Sergeant Slaughter, the NWO, the Tough Enough Kids, they had that front row section or several seats in the front row open so they could just kind of plug people in there, show them on camera, and as soon as the camera was off them, they left. So it's not like Kevin Nash and Scott Hall and Ric Flair and Sergeant Slaughter were sitting there for the whole event. They trotted them out there for a camera shot and then trotted them right out of there. But for the most part, other than seats like that here and there, the building was completely full. It was very impressive to see, the third brand, so to speak, pack in a crowd like they did in a market like New York. It was smart for them to run the show in conjunction with SummerSlam. I'd imagine they're going to do more of that going forward when it comes to some of these big NXT shows, certainly WrestleMania. They did that this year. They had a show in San Jose the Friday before. I believe the plan is to do another NXT show the Friday night before WrestleMania. It's smart. It's smart of them to do that. And anyway, as somebody who was there, I could tell you that the crowd was every bit as big and as loud and boisterous and excited as they came across on TV, because I did watch the TV version when I got home. But let's just run through some of these spoilers really quick for the NXT TV show coming up this Wednesday. The show, or the taping, opened with the 8-man tag, Colin Cassidy, Enzo Amore, and the Hype Brothers. Zack Ryder and Mojo Rawley beating Chad Gable, Jason Jordan, Scott Dawson, and Dash Wilder. Kaz and Enzo came out first. Once their music hit, the place exploded. I mean, the people went absolutely batshit crazy for these two. And I said, in the weeks leading up to the show, it just puzzled me why they were not put in that tag team championship match on the TakeOver show. Why they went with another Vaudevillains match. And ultimately, they put the titles on the Vaudevillains, so I guess that was their plan all along. But why them and not Kaz and Enzo? And the only explanation I can come up with is that they're getting a call-up imminently to the main roster. As a matter of fact, as I am recording this, Monday Night Raw in Brooklyn at the Barclays Center has not yet taken place. It is entirely possible that Kaz and Enzo will make some kind of appearance on Raw. If they do, then I guess it makes sense. If they don't, then to me it makes no sense at all. Because as over as these guys were in this match, they would have been insanely over if they were wrestling for the tag team titles on the TakeOver show. The fact they didn't even have a match on the live TakeOver special and they were in that building is just shocking to me. So unless they're debuting on TV on the main roster this week, this made no sense. But the people were happy to see them. They were doing the whole shtick with Enzo. They knew all the words all night long. They were chanting, how you doing, even in other people's matches. I think there was a "How You Doing" chant even during SummerSlam. So it was a lot of fun to be in the building for that. The match itself was a lot of fun. Everybody had a chance to shine in the match. Enzo did. Chad Gable was in there doing his thing. In the end, the babyfaces got the win with Colin Cassidy launching, I guess it's the rocket launcher where he launches Enzo off the top rope and they got the pin. Eva Marie was out next to massive heat from the crowd in Brooklyn. As hot as it was outside, it was infinitely hotter indoors when this woman walked out. And not just because she's a hot woman. I mean, she's very attractive. She was hated by the people in this building. She went up against Carmella. And I said before, the week before when I did my predictions, and I was running down the card and everything, and I saw that match listed on the undercard. And I said, this has the potential to be a disaster. It's like the blind leading the blind because Carmella really isn't that good. I mean, she may get there at some point, but she's had some matches. There was a match she had not too long ago on NXT television against Alexa Bliss. Not that Alexa Bliss is, already the second coming of Trish Stratus. She just kind of looks like her, but that was just an awful match. So Carmella really isn't even all that great herself. Eva Marie is improving, I guess, but she's still, out of all the women on their roster, the worst. She's at the bottom of the heap. You take the two of them, you put them in the ring, it's like the blind leading the blind. That being said, the match wasn't that terrible. It was no good. The match was not that good, but it was also not a complete disaster. And Eva Marie got the win with the sliced bread number 2, which I believe they're now calling the Kendrick. Like I said, it was a bad match, but I have to say this. I think what Eva Marie's biggest problem is, and I had this conversation with my friend who was at the show with me. I think her biggest problem, she's learning, she's incorporating new moves into her arsenal. The biggest problem that she has is that she moves like she's underwater. She moves in slow motion. And so whatever offense she has, it just makes that offense look horrendous. Because she's moving so slow. Even the way she hits the ropes, she's so slow. If she could speed things up a little bit, that might make all the difference. Because what she does just does not look good. So that was the biggest thing that I got out of this. But she got the win. When the match was over, she stood on the ropes and she made the hand motion around her waist like she wants that championship. So I can only imagine what the reaction will be if they take the title off Bayley in the next few months and put it on Eva Marie. Bull Dempsey doing his new bullfit gimmick came out. He beat Elias Sampson with the whoopee cushion. It was fine, for what it was. I missed part of it because I had gone to get some food, but from what I saw, it was okay. And then we had a fatal 4-way. I don't think it was a number 1 contenders match or anything. I guess if the commentators mentioned that on TV, then we'll know. But in the building, it was just announced as a fatal 4-way with Emma, Dana Brooke, Charlotte, and Becky Lynch. It was good until the finish. And it is impossible for me to believe that this was the planned finish because it was Emma who tagged into I don't know if she tagged in. I don't remember now. I think all 4 women were in at the same time. But anyway, Emma's in the ring with Becky Lynch. And Becky is down in the corner and Emma gives her the Emma Sandwich, which is one of Emma's moves. It's not a move that she wins matches with. It's not her finisher. The Emma Lock is her finisher. She does the Emma Sandwich and she, pulls Becky out of the corner. Actually, Becky was still kind of laying in the corner. Emma covers her, and the referee counts the 3. And I think it was Drake Younger who was the referee, who's one of their better referees. And he counts the 3. And it kind of maybe looked like he was holding up a little bit, but then he just hit the 3. What it looked like to me, from where I was sitting, and I was looking at it up on the big screen, so I was looking at it as though it will air on TV, I assume. It looked like Becky was supposed to kick out. It looked like she was supposed to get a shoulder up. Maybe it's possible somebody like Charlotte was supposed to break up the fall, so I don't want to lay all the blame on Becky Lynch because I'm not 100% sure about that. I am 100% certain, though, that this was a botched finish. Emma was not supposed to win this match. Emma even looked shocked when the match was over. Everybody looked stunned. And then Emma kind of got this little, like the cat caught the canary grin on her face, like, holy fuck, I won a match. Which is pretty much the reaction of everybody in the crowd. Like, wow, Emma actually won a match. I was not expecting that. And I think that's because she was not supposed to win the match. So we'll see how it plays out on TV. I mean, there's only so much editing you can do, right? The finish was what it was. But it'll be very interesting to see how it comes across on TV. And that was the undercard. Triple H came out to his game music, not the King of Kings, and he made the announcement that there were 15,589 people in the building for NXT TakeOver. That could be slightly embellished. Originally they said it was a expected crowd of 13,400. Now they claim 15,000 and change. They always exaggerate the attendance. Like, it was great. The building was packed. They had no reason to exaggerate, but that's just what they do. So they said 15,000. It was probably more like 13 or 14,000. But it was definitely packed. He also made the announcement that NXT is touring the UK in December. The dates for you UK fans who are interested. Tickets are going to go on sale. I believe they said August 28th. So if you're listening to this video before then, you still have time to order your tickets. But the dates are December 10th in Newcastle, December 11th in Glasgow, December 12th in Sheffield, December 13th in Blackpool, December 14th in Nottingham, December 15th in Cardiff, and December 16th in London. And from what I could tell, from what some UK listeners have told me, because I wouldn't know, they would, a lot of the buildings they're running, if not all of the buildings they're running, are big buildings. I mean, these are buildings that could fit up to 10,000 people in them, give or take. So they're not running small venues. They're not running a place like Royal Albert Hall, which I had pitched a few months ago. I was hoping maybe they would do an NXT TakeOver special from the UK and do it in kind of an intimate place like the Royal Albert Hall, which actually, they had a wrestling event there not too long ago. It was some kind of Lucha Libre show they had there, I think, a few months ago. I know WWE had at least one show there back in the early 90s, so they are foregoing that in favor of the bigger buildings. And you know what? God bless them. If they could fill those buildings, then who am I to say that they should be running smaller venues? I do worry that NXT is going to lose a little bit of that, I guess, charm, maybe is the right word for it, if they start running these 10, 15, 20,000 seat buildings and they get a little too full of themselves. Brooklyn was great. It was a smart move for them to run the Barclays Center and not the Manhattan Center. But it's not going to be like that all the time. And I just worry that perhaps NXT is maybe growing a little too quickly and they're expecting a little too much out of it. But like I said, if they could fill the buildings, then God bless them. Why wouldn't you fill bigger buildings? So then came a very interesting open to the show. Triple H said he had an idea, and people in the back, I guess, i.e. Vince, thought he was crazy, but he was going to do it anyway. He said he had this idea for them, when they go on the air, they're going to black out the entire arena, and the only light is going to be a spotlight that shines on him in the middle of the ring. He asked all of us to be completely quiet, church quiet, he said. Not a peep, no catcalling, no cheering, just be quiet. And he's going to open the show and say a few words, and then they're going to put the lights on. So it's going to be like, it's so quiet, you don't know that Triple H is standing in a packed, sold-out arena, but then the lights come on and everybody's going crazy. So in theory, it was a great idea. The minute he asked everybody to stay quiet, we all pretty much looked at each other and said, yeah, fat chance. You're in New York City. I mean, you could be anywhere, let alone New York. You have a raucous crowd. You have people who are going to be dicks. Good luck getting people to be quiet. I thought that maybe the building would get really quiet, and then you'd have, a contingent of idiots that start chanting, TNA or, Benoit or Hogan or something stupid like that. People were not quiet. I mean, if you saw the show when they went on the air, you could hear noise in the background. I mean, it was a little quiet, but not quite what Triple H was hoping for. He was practically begging us, please stay quiet. And then they threw the lights on. When I watched it back on TV, it didn't quite come off the way I think he had hoped, but it was still a pretty cool open to the show. He was trying something different. You can't fault him for that. Opening match of TakeOver was Tyler Breeze against Jushin Thunder Liger, wrestling his first ever WWE match, maybe his only ever WWE match. I still believe he's going into the Hall of Fame next year. He's one of the greatest wrestlers of all time. He's a legend in the business. He now has one WWE match under his belt. They thought enough to invite him and put him over, which I'm sure, look, I mean, I pretty much predicted he was going to win. It was a tough call. When I did the predictions on the Sound Up, I said this was the toughest match to call because it all depends on how this came about, right? So if they went to him and said, hey, listen, We want a favor. Would you be willing to come to New York and wrestle on the show? If WWE is going to him or New Japan or whoever to get him to come in, they're not going to bring him in and have him drop to Tyler Breeze. If it was Liger, who for whatever reason went to his good buddy William Regal and said, hey, I'd love to wrestle on the show, and almost as a favor to Liger, I could see where maybe part of the agreement would be, well, if you're willing to put this guy over. But I pretty much figured Liger would win, and he did. He won with the Liger bomb. The match was shorter than I was thinking it might be, but I have no complaints. It was just really cool. This is the second time I've been able to see Jushin Liger live. The first time was, I think it was last year, the first time they did War of the Worlds, Ring of Honor in New Japan. Liger, I believe Liger had a match with Adam Cole at the Hammerstein Ballroom. That was a lot of fun. So this is my second time seeing him live. The guy's awesome. And what was cool about it was I remember seeing him on Ring of Honor television a couple of months ago. He had a match with Dalton Castle. And, Castle comes out. He's got his boys with him and all the fancy posing that he does. And it was early in the match, and I think he sent Castle out of the ring. And Liger invites the boys, Castle's own boys, into the ring with him, and he does like the Dalton Castle pose. Like he's fucking hilarious. Liger is fantastic. 50 years old. I mean, maybe he's not flying around exactly the way he used to, but he still moves around great. He doesn't look like an old man in there. It was just, it was fantastic. It was short, but it was great. And I'm sure it was a thrill for Breeze to be in the ring with him. We had the Vaudevillains against Blake and Murphy for the NXT Tag Team Championship. My prediction, let the record show, my prediction a few weeks ago was that the Vaudevillains' secret weapon to counteract Alexa Bliss would be blue pants, which was only confirmed when I realized that they just released a blue pants shirt, which tells me she's got to be under some kind of deal with them. So they had to have some kind of plan for this woman, and sure enough, it was Blue Pants who got one of the, I shit you not, one of the biggest ovations of the entire show. Blue Pants got twice the reaction that Samoa Joe did when he came out. The Samoa Joe reaction, and I'll talk about that when we get to that match, that was actually very disappointing when he walked out. Blue Pants blew him out of the water. I mean, the place went crazy. And she came out, and she didn't do much, but she was in the corner of the Vaudevillains. They had a decent match. The match really wasn't anything overly special. I'm not the biggest Vaudevillains fan in the world, but they're slowly winning me over. I'm more of a Simon Gotch fan than an Aiden English fan. I was more of an Aiden English fan when he was doing the singles gimmick. People would throw roses at him, and he would sing on his way to the ring. But they're slowly winning me over. They are a very good tag team. And they got the win. They are the new NXT Tag Team Champions. They won with their Whirly Dervish finish. And there was a spot where Blue Pants did poorly, but she did tackle Alexa Bliss to the mat, and they kind of brawled to the outside. And the Vaudevillains are the new tag team champions. And it looks like Blue Pants may be their manager going forward. So I guess we'll see how that shakes out. We had the debut of Apollo Cruz, the former Uhaa Nation. Hell of a debut, I have to say. This guy's going to look back on this. You know, he came out, got a great reaction. It's his first match in WWE, and he's debuting at the Barclays Center in front of 15,000 people in Brooklyn. It's not a bad place to make your debut. That's all I'm saying. He came out, he had a very short match with Ty Dillinger. Ty Dillinger is awesome, very underrated. His Perfect 10 gimmick, which, by the way, he's only played the Perfect 10 gimmick on TV once. He was on television once, 2 weeks ago, with this new gimmick, and it was already over like gangbusters in this building. So this was a smart crowd that knew the NXT product. This was not, some people, yeah, but the majority of the crowd clearly were NXT fans who paid attention to the product. These were not just fans that were here for SummerSlam and just, okay, we'll check out an NXT show. These people knew, like when Blue Pants came out. I mean, the reaction that she got tells you everything you need to know right there. So these people knew their shit. And Dillinger was very over, but not over at the expense of Apollo Crews. He was also very popular with the crowd. Not a lot of chants for like Uhaa or anything like that. So I don't really know how many people knew him as that character. Maybe that was a little surprising to me. There was a guy behind me who kept shouting, Uhaa Nation over and over and over again. And then he sounded heartbroken. He looked at his friend. He goes, Nobody knows who he is. And then he shut up, and I didn't hear from him the rest of the show, so I hope he's okay. But Cruz got the win with a standing moonsault. Very impressive for a guy his size, the stuff he's able to do. He's going to get over very, very well, I think, on the main roster when he hits. And I think he'll hit the main roster a lot sooner than other guys will on that NXT roster. In fact, it wouldn't shock me if Tyler Breeze is still toiling on NXT while Apollo Crews makes his Raw debut. William Regal made the announcement that they are going to be holding in tribute to the late Dusty Rhodes, the Dusty Rhodes Tag Team Classic, which starts on the September 2nd episode of NXT and culminates with the finals on the next TakeOver show, which is the day after my birthday, October 7th. So mark that down. They didn't really explain any rules of the Dusty Rhodes Tag Team Classic or explain who's in it or anything like that, so I don't know if it's going to be for a new championship they're creating, if it's like a King of the Ring Royal Rumble type of thing, or if the winners become the number one contenders to the Vaudevillains. They haven't explained that yet, nor have they explained who's in it. But it's a nice little way to, pay tribute to Dusty Rhodes. I mean, I know there were a lot of people hoping they would rename the Performance Center into something like the American Dream Performance Center. My idea was to create a new championship, because I think NXT, as it continues to grow, would benefit from having a secondary title, like their version almost of the Intercontinental title. And somebody like a Tyler Breeze, for example, could really benefit from something like that. And so why not call it the Dream title, the Dream Championship? So that was my idea, but I guess they're going with this instead. Samoa Joe came out to, like I said before, what was, I thought, a pretty disappointing reaction. It's not like people were sitting on their hands. I mean, he got a nice little reception, but nothing like I thought it would be. Baron Corbin, I gotta say, now Baron Corbin lost this match. Joe beat him clean with the choke. Corbin passed out. He did not tap out. And I like the way Corbin actually sold it, because he passed out. Joe got the win. Maybe 10 or 15 seconds later, Corbin woke up. He was looking up at the referee like, what happened? That's kind of a realistic way. Selling it in a realistic way, like you would in a fight, where if a guy goes out, then he wakes up and he's all disoriented. He doesn't know what just happened. He's grabbing the referee. What the hell happened? So I give him a lot of credit for that. I thought Corbin did a really good job in this match. This was easily the best Baron Corbin match that I've ever seen him have, and probably the best match he's ever had, and one of the longest too. I mean, he's had some longer matches, but most of his matches go 30 seconds. I didn't time this match, so I don't know. It went like 8 or 10 minutes, and not one time did he look out of place. Not one time did he look lost. Not one move that I noticed did he botch. Or anything like that, because again, he's still pretty green, he's still pretty young. So I was more impressed, I think, by him than I was Samoa Joe. At least with Samoa Joe, I know what I'm getting, and Joe delivered on that. He did all of his signature moves except for the Muscle Buster. But Corbin, I thought, if anything, he overachieved in this match. And they probably got out of Joe exactly what they wanted. They wanted Joe to work with a younger guy and give him a good match, and if that was the mission accomplished. So it was a good little match that they had. Joe did get the win, but Corbin looked pretty good in the process. We then had the NXT Women's Championship match between Sasha Banks and Bayley. Now, people can be prone to hyperbole when they talk about a great match that they just saw. They could call it the greatest of all time, and maybe if they look back on it a few days later or a few weeks later, they kind of come back to reality. I guess time will tell if that happens here too, but I can honestly tell you, as somebody who was in the building, who watched it live, this was, in my opinion, the greatest women's match, not only in the history of NXT, but in WWE history. I think it's safe to say that in the history of that company, so I'm not talking other companies, I'm not talking Japan. Okay, don't jump down my throat. In terms of WWE or NXT, this was the greatest women's match that they've ever produced. Find me a better match. Find me a match that has all of the elements that this one had going for it. The video package and the story leading up to the match, the presentation of that match as a co-main event on the show, the entrances, especially Sasha's entrance, the match itself, the psychology during the match with Bayley, selling the injured hand, Sasha ripping the wrapping off of it, and Bayley selling it, Sasha stomping on the hand. I thought that was a great moment in the match. The post-match stuff when it was all over, the crowd reaction, everything. The whole package. There is no better women's match in the history of that company. And just as a match, okay, male or female, it's one of the greatest that I have ever seen live. I've been to a lot of shows. I've been to 4 WrestleManias now, 5, whatever it's been. This is up there. This is up there as one of the greatest matches that I have ever seen live. I'm so happy I was able to be there live to see this. And I know some people who went to the Ring of Honor show, and I heard the Ring of Honor show was actually very good, the one that they had at MCU Park. It might have been hurt by the acoustics of being outside in a ballpark. They had 2,000 people there, but that's still a minor league stadium that fits, 7,500 plus standing room only. So that may have hurt the ROH show a little bit, but there were some people I heard from who were kicking themselves for going to the ROH show instead of TakeOver, and kicking themselves for this match. Nothing else, just this match. And so I'm happy I made the choice to go and to be there for this, because to be in the building when Bayley won the championship was a special moment. Bayley did win the title from Sasha Banks. 18 minutes and 17 seconds is what I clocked it at on the Diva stopwatch. What can I say? I mean, this was just fantastic. Sasha Banks coming out in the Escalade with the with the bodyguards was a nice touch. It's not something that they've done for the women before. That's really why I love this match so much. They treated this match like any other main event. They didn't treat it like a women's main event. They treated it like they would any other main event, with the guys on even the main roster. The video package that they aired that built up to this match is one of the best that I've seen them do for an NXT TakeOver match. I thought it was fantastic, the whole thing of showing the 4 horsewomen, Becky and Sasha and Charlotte and Bayley, and they show the highlights of, Charlotte winning the NXT Women's title and Sasha winning the NXT Women's title and Becky turning on Bayley when she turned heel, and then showing them making their Raw debut, and then they go back to the image of all 4 women, and Bayley is like, she fades out, they crop her out of it, because she's the one who hasn't yet been called up to the main roster, and she also, it's been 2 years, she has not won the NXT Women's Championship, not even one time. And they show Sasha Banks in the video package. Oh, boo frickin' who, grow up. Like, it was fantastic. The video was fantastic. I mean, most of their videos are, but this was especially good. Bayley comes out. My favorite part of her entrance, of course, is the big, giant, inflatable tube men. I mark out for those. So she comes out. Great reaction from the crowd. Sasha comes out, does her entrance. They do the championship introductions. As soon as they mention that Sasha's from Boston, that's the only point in the match where people vehemently booed this woman. So no matter what she did, no matter how badly she beat up poor Bayley and stomped on her hand and did all this heinous stuff, the only time she ever got a truly negative reaction was when they mentioned Boston. The Boston hate in New York is real. For those of you who don't live here, who aren't from around here, I can vouch for it. It is a real phenomenon. And it's not just limited to baseball either. So they have their match. And I can't say enough good things about the match itself. The story they told. Especially once Sasha did take the wrap, the little cast or whatever it was off of Bayley's hand. Because I think she had broke her hand a month or 2 ago. So she took that off and she was just brutalizing her. Slamming her hand into the steps and putting her hand between the steps and the ring apron and smashing them. And when they got in the ring and they had the, maybe my favorite sequence of the entire match is when Sasha Banks got Bayley in the bank statement, in the crossface. People are going nuts. And Bayley is reaching for the bottom rope. She's almost there, and Sasha starts stomping. She's using her legs, and she's stomping on Bayley's hand repeatedly, over and over and over again. And Bayley is still reaching for the ropes, and Sasha uses her own foot to push off the ropes. Now, I thought what she was doing was she was trying to push the rope away so Bayley couldn't grab it, but she basically pushed off the rope, flipped over, and in doing so, Bayley was able to reverse it into a crossface of her own. And that's when people lost their shit. They were going absolutely crazy. Sasha, I think, was able to get her boot on the rope, and the ref broke it up. So the place was already going crazy. They were buzzing. I mean, there was a lot of really good stuff before this, too. They get to the end of the match, and they're up top on the top rope. And Bayley goes and executes a reverse Rana off the top rope, which is a move I've seen Adrian Neville do on NXT before. I recall him doing that, I think, in the match he had with Sami Zayn. It's a crazy move. It's a dangerous move when you're standing in the ring, when you're just standing on the mat. To do that from the top rope, and these are the women, so it's not something that you're used to seeing. It's not a risk that you're used to seeing the women, at least in WWE, take. They don't take high risks like that. And Bayley goes and she pulls off this reverse Rana. Sasha looked like she landed on her head. It looked great, a little scary, but it looked great. And that was when you knew, okay, this is over. You can't do a near fall here. This match has to end. And Bayley, sure enough, went for her belly to Bayley suplex, which I thought looked great. I always used to think that it was such a bad finisher, because what is it? It's a belly to belly suplex, but she did this with such force that it actually looked pretty damn good. And she got the pin. Everybody counted along. The place exploded when she won the championship. You look up at the screen, they zoomed in on Bayley. She was in tears, legit tears, just crying. I think, and by the way, she was not the only one crying. Okay, I would be lying if I didn't tell you that, it didn't even make me tear up a little bit. But there were people around who were legitimately crying. I'm talking men and women. And I think what was so great about this, and this goes to the storytelling of the match, it wasn't just the story of Bayley being the odd person out. All of her friends were called up, or all of her friends won the championship. She never did. She's been in NXT. She's been stymied before, where she's close to winning the championship and then she just falls short. There's that basic story, but I remember there being a takeover show, and I don't remember exactly what match it was, if it was the Fatal 4-Way they had with the women many, many months ago, maybe even last year. Bayley didn't win. And after the show was over back then, they would do these post-shows, and Renee Young would interview some people. And Renee Young interviewed Bayley at ringside after the takeover show, and Bayley was in tears because she was talking about her mom was there and she feels like she let her mom down. It was actually a pretty emotional thing. I mean, they got me with it. Even I was like, oh man, you felt bad that this girl didn't win the championship, and her mom was there and she just looks like a complete failure, and she's all broken up about it, tears in her eyes. And she talked about the fact that her mother and her family was here in Brooklyn watching her. And here she is now. She won the match. She won the championship. The tears are flowing. So if you know that backstory, if you've paid attention to this girl's history in NXT and you knew about that, that just adds to it. You know what I mean? That just adds to the emotion of it. And people were, I have to say, people were very emotional. Whether they want to admit it or not, there were quite a few of the onion chopping ninjas running around the Barclays Center when Bayley won that title. And Becky ran out, Charlotte ran out. They were also crying, or Charlotte was anyway. They celebrated with her. They picked her up on their shoulders. They showed all the replays of all the big moves. They showed at the end. I don't remember. I did watch the match back, which is funny to me. I watched the entire thing back that night when I got home. That's how much I love that match. I don't remember if they showed replays during the match or if they saved them all for the end. I had people tweeting me saying, hey, this is great. They saved all the replays for the end instead of peppering us with replay after replay in the middle of the match. They were showing replays up on the screen as the match was going on. So I just assumed, okay, they're showing replays after every big move. But now that I think about it, I don't remember if on the actual TakeOver special, if they showed replays or if they just held them all for the end, which is the way that they should do it. I am a big fan of that. I think Kevin Dunn, it's just horrendous. And you saw this at SummerSlam. Every fucking move, you get a replay. And a lot of times when they're showing you a replay, you're missing something else that's happening in the match. It's in a little box. It's like, just save the replays for the end of the match. I think they may have done that on this show. But anyway, they were showing all the replays. They come back and you have the 3 horsewomen in the ring. Sasha Banks comes in. She's number 4. Sasha goes over to Bayley. They hug. Now they're all hugging. And it was a great moment. It was their version of the curtain call. It was, no doubt it was designed that way. I mean, Triple H is the one running the show. It was probably his idea. And here they are in New York, in the shadow of Madison Square Garden, where the original curtain call took place many years ago and caused such controversy. And it's funny now to see that and how big of a deal that was, 20 years ago, 19 years ago. And now it's not a big deal at all. Because, the business has evolved, for better or worse, right? It's changed. It's a lot more open than it was back then. Yeah, I'm sure you have a lot of old school wrestlers and old school fans who saw that and maybe didn't like it. I didn't mind it at all. Did it make sense? No. It didn't really make all that much sense because not even that Sasha and Bayley were enemies. I can understand Sasha maybe having a moment of respect and embracing Bayley, but you had this weird thing where the very next night at SummerSlam, some of the women here are on opposing teams. So that was a little awkward, but I didn't mind it at all. I thought it was fantastic. It just added to the emotion of everything and just made me scratch my head why they didn't just bring, maybe not Bayley, but the other women, why they didn't just bring them up to the main roster together for like a little NXT women's invasion. Why they did things the way they did and kind of separating them and doing it that way. I don't know. I mean, there was a report. I don't know. I don't know if it's true or not. It was a WrestleZone report. WrestleZone, they've reported some stuff before. They've broken some stories before, but there was a report that I saw yesterday that came out about how John Cena went and lobbied for plans to be changed, and originally the plan had been for the women to come up together, and Charlotte was going to win the Divas Championship almost instantly, if not maybe even on their first night from Nikki Bella. And it was John Cena, perhaps at the behest of his girlfriend. We don't know, but it was John Cena supposedly who went to Vince or whoever and had the plans changed, and that's why we ended up with what we ended up with. Again, I don't know, true or not, wouldn't shock me, wouldn't be the first example of somebody using their power to benefit their significant other. I mean, I know they're not married, but it is what it is. They did that the way they wanted to do it. It was cool to see all four of them in the ring together. Maybe one day they'll end up together on the main roster. My only thing with that is that if that were to happen, and this is one of the drawbacks, they don't have enough other women. They're still building that division. Maybe a year or two from now, they'll have even more women who can actually work, at a high level. But I guess the one issue is that if you bring all 3 or 4 of them up together and put them together on the main roster, who are they feuding with? They're feuding with the Bellas and Naomi, and who else? Who else is really at their level or near their level for them to feud with? The division is still not that big. And that maybe that had something to do with why they kind of separated them. But in any event, these are the women who are going to carry that division going forward. Sasha Banks, Charlotte is also very talented, but I still feel Sasha Banks. I'm a huge Sasha Banks fan. I think that she can be the face of that division. I think she could be one of the faces of the company. They keep talking about this Divas Revolution nonsense. I love how they keep mentioning that every 5 minutes. If it was an actual revolution, they wouldn't have to tell us every 5 seconds. But I think if they really wanted to make a statement, you have John Cena and you have Roman Reigns. These are the faces of the company. They should have a female face of the company. And Nikki Bella is not that female face of the company. But somebody like a Sasha Banks, I could see her being in that role. And maybe in due time she will be. She was fantastic on this show. Bayley also. It's not one over the other. I mean, they just knocked it out of the frickin' park. This was an all-time great performance from these women. I can't say enough good things about this match. Like I said before, I'm so happy I had the chance to be there live to see it and to see that reaction when she won the championship. And I would put this match against any other women's match I've ever seen out of that company. And frankly, I would put this match up against any other match of the year candidate for 2015. It's too early to say for sure. I've got a lot of favorite matches, for example, from Lucha Underground that were pretty damn great. But this match, if it ain't match of the year, and I'm not saying it is, it's definitely in contention. That's how good this match was. The funniest moment of the show actually came right after. They gave us a shot of Seth Rollins sitting at ringside, and Seth Rollins was sitting next to the woman who is signed to NXT. Her name escapes me at the moment. I think it's like Zara or Zahara Schreiber, something like that. The woman that he sent the dick pics to, that I'm pretty sure must have busted up his relationship with his fiance, because there he was, sitting with his side dish at TakeOver. The ultimate heel, Seth Rollins. Big fat smile on his face, too. Good for him. Good for him. I guess she was impressed by what she saw. The main event was Finn Balor and Kevin Owens for the NXT Championship at a ladder match. They had a tough act to follow with the women, and they did the best they could. They had a very good match. It did not quite meet the level of the women's match. I would still say easily the women's match was the best match of the show. The women's match was the best match of the whole weekend. Bar none. I mean, by far. Even anything on SummerSlam, it was far and ahead the best match of the weekend of all the WWE shows. I guess I can't speak for the ROH show that I didn't see. But the guys came out for the main event, and there were not a lot. There were a couple of people who threw streamers, and there was this one guy who threw, I think, orange streamers at the ring for Balor, for his entrance. Maybe he saw the Tokyo show and Finn Balor was showered in streamers. They love showing that on TV. But this one guy throws streamers, and he and his buddies got kicked out by security. And that's why if you watch this match, you hear this commotion, you hear booing and cheering, that's what it was. These guys threw streamers, and they got kicked out. And then a few minutes later, I don't know if it, word came from Triple H or somebody at the top, or if they kind of talked to the security guards and explained what they were doing. But whatever it was, they were allowed back in. So early in the match, when you hear the crowd out of nowhere suddenly start cheering wildly, that's what that was. It was the guys that were kicked out for the streamers were allowed back to their seats. They even got a welcome back chant, which was very nice. But like I said, very good main event. I cringed at some of the spots. I think the biggest cringe the entire show probably was when Balor knocked Owens off the ladder. This was right before the finish. He had the little ladder bridge, and Owens had his head rammed into the top of the ladder, fell backwards. He landed right on top of the ladder and smashed his head. I thought he was concussed for sure. He must not have been, because he wrestled at SummerSlam and he looked good, and they wouldn't have let him wrestle if he was concussed. Now with all the concussion stuff going on, I mean, they won't let Daniel Bryan wrestle. And Daniel Bryan is just chomping at the bit, ready to come back. He says he's perfectly fine, and they won't let him wrestle. So he got out unscathed somehow, but it did not look good. And there were a couple of spots like that. I mean, ladder matches is a dangerous thing. It's not easy to be in a ladder match. Very, very dangerous. All the other crazy matches they've come up with, cage matches and whatever else, a basic ladder match or TLC or whatever, to me is still probably the most dangerous match you could have. Climbing ladders and falling on them and using them as weapons, it's not fun. And I give Kevin Owens a lot of credit too, because he took a lot of abuse with that ladder, and he didn't look any worse for wear the next night in his match with Cesaro. Had one of the better matches on the show. But in the end, it was Finn Balor with the coup de grace, double foot stomp off the ladder onto Kevin Owens. That was the end of Kevin Owens. Finn Balor climbed up, grabbed the championship, and retained the title. I don't think the finish was ever really in dispute. I know there was some rumblings that Kevin Owens had come out wearing the NXT title on the tapings that they did for shows that were going to be airing in the next few weeks. I think there was even a photo of it that leaked. To me, that just reeked of them trying to swerve everybody. It's something they've done before. I didn't put any stock into it. It just wouldn't have made any sense to put the belt back on Kevin Owens. It didn't make any sense to even do this match. I thought they were done and finished with this, but I guess they wanted Owens on there. Maybe he's got some cachet now that he's on the main roster, and he'd be big in New York, and maybe that's why they wanted him in the main event. So I would assume that now his time at NXT is over, and it's time for Finn Balor to move on to somebody else for the championship. I'm not quite sure who that is. Tyler Breeze, as much as I love Tyler Breeze, been there, done that, and he just lost to a non-NXT guy, so I don't think he's going to suddenly be vaulted into title contention. Baron Corbin just lost to Samoa Joe. Maybe Samoa Joe Finn Balor and Samoa Joe could be your next feud for the NXT Championship. And if they can get a good couple of months out of that, right around then, Hideo Itami will probably be ready to come back, and maybe they'll give us the big reveal, and we'll find out that it was either Balor or Joe who attacked Itami all those months ago, and one of them will go heel. Of the two, if I had to pick one, it would probably be Joe. I think they can get a good heel title run out of Joe in NXT if they wanted to. But when I got home that night, I was on an NXT high. I couldn't even go to bed. I got home, it's 2:30 in the morning. I'm like, you know what? Now would be a good time to go back and rewatch part of the show. And I didn't watch the entire thing. I really just wanted to rewatch the women's match, which I did. I've seen it 3 times now. And it's just fucking fantastic. I can't say enough good things about it. It was an excellent show overall. I don't know that it's the best takeover show, top to bottom, of all the ones that they've done. Certainly it was the biggest. And if it's not the best, it's up there as one of the best. The women's match, best that I've ever seen. If you didn't see the show, 2 thumbs up. I highly recommend that you find it on the network. Check it out. It's worth the... you could probably get the network for free, let's be honest. I mean, they have free months every single month. Do whatever you have to do. Watch this show. It is well worth your time. That's going to do it for the NXT Brooklyn review. A fun review to do. It's always more fun when you have a great show that you can review and not have to rant about. I'll leave that for the main roster shows. If you haven't already subscribed to this channel, you know what to do. Hit the subscribe button. That way when new videos go up unannounced, you'll be the first to know about it. Leave comments in the section down below. Always appreciate your feedback, good, bad, or indifferent. Follow me on Twitter, @Solomonster. And of course, don't forget you can find all the full episodes of the Solomonster Sounds Off on our website, thesolomonster.com, or you can subscribe to the show in iTunes or Stitcher Radio. Whatever floats your boat, whatever works best for you guys. We'll be back soon with a new video. Until then, be well, stay safe. Thank you very much for tuning in, and we will see you again very soon. Until then, take care, guys.